Watch for a pairing signal and then I'll start. I'll just stand and keep on.
Things are happening.
All right. Thanks, Jamie. Good morning, everybody. Got to do what the Spirit says do, right? Yeah, right. That's right. I'm Don Retzer, and I'm one of your board members. And last week we had a board meeting, and we said, why do you have a board member welcome everybody? It's not a bad question, right? The reason is we want to remind us all that we are the people's church. We are shared ministry with the professional ministers, and all of us, we do the work and we do the ministry. And that's the nature of this place. That's this community. And yesterday, as evidence of that, there are 5 of your staff members and 10 of your board members met all day with about 30 or 40 of your most active members, and they spent most of the day telling us where to go. Well, being Universalist background, that's not such a threatening thing to hear. So that's the process. That's what we are. That's what we do. We're centered on values, but we emerge and build and make this community ourselves. That's our responsibility. As Reverend Logan continues to tell us many, many times, we're all in this together.
Good morning. I am Reverend Amy Russell, your assistant minister here at First UU. I'm so glad to see all of you on this very cold morning. And we have with us in the house the UU Singers. Hey! And we have Jamie Kilpatrick, and we have Joel Gottlieb. We have our worship associate, Maggie Waugh, and all of you, so glad that you're here this morning. So will you take a minute to say hello to your neighbor? Oh, sorry. Wait. Sit down.
Hold on.
I forgot. Sit down. You can't get him back. Yeah, it's gone. The Spirit said to. Yeah, they did.
Change the direction of the ship once it gets going.
The Spirit said hi.
They still don't want to get back. Okay, thank you for moving ahead and saying hello to all your neighbors and welcoming them. But I forgot to welcome our visitors. So we would love to hear your name and where you're from, if you're here from the first or second time, or if you'd like to introduce yourself. Jamie will come around with the mic. Just raise your hand. Please stand and introduce yourself.
Good morning. I'm Julie. This is my husband, Ryan. We're visiting. We're longtime members of the UU Church in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And we're visiting our daughter and our only grandbaby and son-in-law and contemplating a move to Richmond.
Yay. Welcome.
What's up, y'all?
Hi, I'm Theo. I've been here a few times before. This is technically my third time or fourth, but I'm just looking for a place to really connect with the community and spirituality. So
Wonderful.
Happy to be here.
Welcome.
My name's Alara, and this is my boyfriend, Ryan, and we are first-timers here. We've been in Richmond about 6 or 7 years now, but this is our first time at the church. We're very excited to be here, so thank you for having us.
Welcome.
Not you. You, okay.
Hi, this is Adele. I'm Adele McLean, and I'm here with Larry Zemke, who is my new partner.
Welcome.
Y'all clear?
I am Alvin Fudge, also known as Baba Ra, and I was introduced to UU in Cleveland, Ohio. I love it. It's my home. I feel at home here, a lot of love. And I go to Unity, So it's all the same. It's divine love. And I noticed that you as white folks that talk about social justice and reparations, they're my kind of people.
Hey everybody, my name's Jen, and I just want to say thank you because I had a really rough moment this morning, and I was greeted with grace and presence, and I just want to say thank you.
Good morning.
Tom Ollinger, just moved back to Richmond after a few years. Been going to the UU Church in Whitestone on the Northern Neck, so I'm happy to see old friends and also meet some new people.
Welcome. Wow, I think we're done. Yes. Our theme this month is liberating love. What could be more liberating than the idea of universalism and the love that is offered in this theology? Our Universalist forebears taught us about a love from a God who could not help but love us, all of us. despite our sorry, broken selves. This universalist God exists in a world where we are all loved and all saved, according to Christian definitions of being brought closer to God. That universalist God expects us to act with love. But in this current social media world where people continually hurt and attack others, how can we continue to act with that love and to forgive? Can we save our world with that love? Does a definition of the word saved help us to understand that we need to save our world today?
A Chalice Lighting for When Things Aren't Okay by Molly Brewer. My beloved people, I cannot pretend, and so I will not tell you that everything is okay right now, that there is no reason to be angry, that you must be optimistic or at peace. I cannot pretend these things, and so I won't tell them to you. But now our chalice is lit, and so all I ask in this moment is that we remember the words of Rebecca Parker. There is a love holding us. There is a love holding all. By the light of our chalice, let us rest in this love.
Will you please stand as we sing our opening hymn?
Why is America so mean? An excerpt from the Atlantic magazine article by David Brooks. Why have Americans become so mean? I was recently talking with a restaurant owner who said that he has had to eject a customer from his restaurant for rude or cruel behavior once a week, something that never used to happen. A head nurse at a hospital told me that many on her staff are leaving the profession because patients have become so abusive. At the far extreme of meanness, hate crimes rose in 2020 to their highest level in 12 years. Murder rates have been surging, at least until recently. Same with gun sales. Social trust is plummeting. In 2000, 2/3 of American households gave to charity. In 2018, fewer than half did. The words that define our age reek of menace, conspiracy, polarization, mass shootings, trauma, safe spaces. We're enmeshed in some sort of emotional, relational, and spiritual crisis, and it undergirds our political dysfunction and the general crisis of our democracy. What is going on? Over the past few years, different social observers have offered different stories to explain the rise of hatred, anxiety, and despair. The technological story: social media is driving us all crazy. The sociology story: we've stopped participating in community organizations and are more isolated. The demography story: America, a long white-dominated nation, is becoming a much more diverse country, a change that has millions of white Americans in a panic. The economy story: high levels of economic inequality and insecurity have left people afraid, alienated, and pessimistic. I agree to an extent with all of these stories, but I don't think any of them is the deepest one. Sure, social media has had bad effects, but it is everywhere around the globe, and the mental health crisis is not. Also, the rise of despair and hatred has engulfed a lot of people who are not on social media. Economic inequality is real, but it doesn't fully explain this level of social and emotional breakdown. The sociologists are right that we're more isolated, but why? What values lead us to choose lifestyles that make us lonely and miserable? The most important story about why Americans have become sad and alienated and rude, I believe, is also the simplest. We inhabit a society in which people are no longer trained in how to treat others with kindness and consideration. Our society has become one in which people feel licensed to give their selfishness free rein. In a healthy society, a web of institutions, families, schools, religious groups, community organizations, and workplaces helps form people into kind and responsible citizens, the sort of people who show up for one another. We live in a society that's terrible at moral formation.
So good morning, everyone. It's lovely seeing you, everybody here, on such a cold day. So thank you for being here. I'm Ned Haley, a member of this congregation and a volunteer driver for the Shepherd Center of Richmond, the beneficiary organization of our Share the Plate this month. The mission of this 40-year-old volunteer-driven senior service nonprofit is to, quote, encourage older adults to remain active and independent through enrichment programs and volunteer service to their peers. Numerous members of this congregation have served as volunteers, students, and in leadership at the Shepherd Center over the years. I'd like to say a bit more about our client services, which provide no-cost rides for medical and dental appointments and for grocery shopping to senior members of our community who can no longer drive themselves. Rides are offered by volunteers using their own cars. In the last fiscal year, 34 drivers provided 718 rides to and from their destinations to 53 different clients. Those numbers are only beginning to approach pre-pandemic levels, and demand for our services is increasing. Volunteers who drive as their schedule permits select the drives they wish to perform from a list of incoming needs and are under no obligation to perform a minimum number of drives. Volunteers with handyman skills also assist clients with simple household repairs. If you're looking for a volunteer opportunity, enjoy driving, enjoy meeting and helping people, and have a few hours to spare from time to time, we would love to have you join us. If you're interested, actually, Ralph Grainer, who is a member of the board of Shepherd Center as well as a member of this congregation, will be available after the service to provide additional information. The offering will now be taken and most gratefully received and put to good use. Options for how you can donate through Share the Plate are shown on the screens. And thank you in advance for your generosity.
Good morning, congregation. I'd like to give us a little pre-meditation meditation. I want you to imagine a clear spring brook, water flowing over rocks and over pebbles, burbling on by. And now consider that spring a metaphor for your own soul. And, as good environmentally conscious UUs, what's the water quality of your soul? Are you sending out water to the world that is too salinic, too much salt, too bitter? Is it decaying? Is it full of healthy microbes and good bacteria and healthy life? How is the state of your internal water?
Spring
Let us take a moment to let that warm, soothing spring soak into us, into our soul. Let me share these words from Reverend Gretchen Haley. For this one moment, know that you are loved, that you are safe and whole and loved. Know that you belong here, here upon this earth, in your body, however tired, however broken your heart may be. Whatever fear or disappointment, anger you carry for this hour, know that you are not alone. Feel the presence of others, breathing beside you, with you, discovering the way our voices rise and fall together, in harmony, in hope, claiming here a resilient freedom, the choice for love, for light, to live with joy and with gratitude and praise. Let us know we are loved. Amen. This morning, we also want to pray for all those in the world who are experiencing war, oppression, and conflict. For all those who don't know they are loved. Let us take a moment to find that love in our own hearts and to send that love out into the world which needs it so badly. Just take a moment. Amen, and may it be so.
We've got a new song to learn today, and Diane's going to help me teach it to you. Your job is simple: copy.
There is a love holding me. There is a love holding me. There is a love holding all that I love. There is a love holding all that I love. There is a love holding all. There is a love holding all. I rest in this love. I rest in this love. There is a love holding all that I love.
We rest in this love. The theology of Universalism, preached by one of our faith's founders, Hosea Ballou, proposed that the idea of Christian atonement was completely backwards and antithetical to a loving God. Ballou preached that the infinite love available from God would not expect Christ to suffer on the cross in order to appease God. That instead, God's sacrifice through Christ was the epitome of God's outpouring of love and forgiveness for all of humankind. The message of universalism is that salvation is equally available to all, regardless of religion or of sin or of anything. There is a love holding us all. Now, many of us search for that understanding that there is a love holding us all. It's hard to find. When we can feel that love, and we're resting in that love, then those times are beautiful. But so often, we are in a time of chaos and anxiety, and we cannot find that love. But for times when we don't have that assurance, when we find ourselves horrified by the behavior we see around us, the mean, the selfish, even immoral behavior we see demonstrated across the news, social media, even in our own communities. Many of us search to understand this, let alone forgive it. David Brooks asks that question that has been on the minds of many of us. Why has America become so mean? He says that we inhabit a society in which people are no longer trained in how to treat others with kindness and consideration. Our society has become one in which people feel licensed to give their selfishness free rein. Brooks outlines in this article that history of much of American education and societal formation has traditionally been centered around moral formation. He points to various institutions in our country as teaching basic social and ethical skills, like how do you welcome a neighbor into your community? How do you disagree with someone constructively? And how do you help people find a purpose and meaning in their life? We don't hear those words a lot. He outlines what he calls morally formative institutions that held up a set of ideals that promoted civility and charity and building community. He says that these institutions have broken down. They no longer function with those norms. So, some of those institutions that helped to form me and to inform the values that I hold were the Episcopal Church that I grew up in and the Girl Scouts. I spent a lot of time as a young person in both of those institutions. So they taught me how to become successful in my own right, but they taught me something greater. They taught me how to work with others, to become successful together as a community. Remember those merit badges? Those of you who were in Scout organizations, remember we had those wonderful sashes? I mean, in Girl Scouts we had a green sash, and I don't remember what the Boy Scouts maybe had a brown sash. But we had those little, embroidered badges that we would work hard with during the week or with friends, and then we'd come back and our scout leader would sign off on all the requirements, and then we'd sew that badge, and we'd be so proud that we had all these badges. Now, we certainly were teaching meritocracy, right? But this is what I remember about those, working on those merit badges. The first few requirements, you just had to go learn something, read a book or watch a movie or something. But the last two requirements were really important. One of them was always go talk to someone who knows more than you, like a grandparent. I remember going to talk to my grandmother about sewing. It was a badge I was working on, and she taught me a lot about sewing. But the last requirement in all of these badges were go out in the community and find someone to work with and build something new together. I remember that so clearly because that was the hardest one, and I was very shy, and I didn't want to do that, right? That was just the hardest one, but I couldn't get the badge unless I did that. So yes, I think David Brooks is right. There's a lot that we learned from those institutions about working together in an unselfish way. So I want you all to think of a time in your lives when you had that kind of experience, what kind of organization or group or institution taught you those values? Anybody want to shout out anything there? Boy Scouts. Daycare. Wow. Oh, day camp. Okay. Kindergarten. Methodist youth group. Sleepaway camp. Summer youth camps. Peace Corps. Sunday school. The Army. Interesting. Sports taught you how to cooperate, got to work together, right? Marching band, yes. Square dancing, you got to work with your partner, or you're going to run into each other, all right. Volunteering, okay. Great, okay, we got a lot of them, thank you. I was hoping one of you would say, your UU church, but. Okay, a lot of them there. So, David Brooks says that these institutions, these key institutions that we all grew up with, were so important to our formation, no longer function to teach us these moral values. We have lost this moral structure, he believes. Okay, so let's take a look at that for a minute. What did you learn, in addition to learning cooperative, collaborative behavior, what else did you learn in those institutions, those schools, those churches, those camps? Some of us learned these wonderful values of collaboration and generosity and unselfishness, but what else did we learn? I think many of us learned that some of these institutions were imbued with patriarchy, misogyny, greed, ableism, and white supremacy. Unfortunately, we also learned those values. You know, remember that song, "We're Carefully Taught"? Yes, we were carefully taught those values as well. So, we were taught in the 50s and 60s about a lot of social behavior, social expectations, how to dress. I remember my grandmother telling me that when you went on an airplane, you always wore a dress, because then people would treat you well. Oh, okay. I learned that very well, but I know after she died, I never wore a dress, hardly ever again, but people continued to treat me pretty well. Lots of norms that we learned, how to talk to one another, how to dress, how to stay in our socially acceptable behavior, right? But we can all agree that things changed in the 60s. They began to change, right? So what we began to see starting in the 60s was individualism became the more acceptable behavior in our society. We had learned the social mores, but we were taught in the 60s that we could be very different, independent, unique individuals, right? So individualism became the norm. My generation, in rejecting some of these stuffy moral codes of society, began to push towards the freedom of thought that allowed our generation to break free of some of those restrictive, patriarchal, misogynist, and racist codes. Many of us rejected the societal expectations of social class and assigned gender and sexual orientation and certain kinds of behavior and white supremacy. Many of us began to free ourselves of some of those strictures. So we hoped that in rejecting these outdated mores of society, that we might all change for the better. Many of us think that loosening up those strictures of society in that time allowed us to become who we were, right? We were the me generation, allowing people to make their own expectations of how they wanted to identify as individuals. And we have, of course, seen much more freedom for us to identify with who we want to be. However, in creating that freedom, we may have thrown away some of the values that are essential for a moral society. We may have given up some of the norms of social behavior that expect us not to just live for ourselves, but to live with and for others. Have we created in that freedom a license for uncaring behavior? Have we given people the idea that anything goes, that it doesn't matter how we treat one another in our communities? So I come back to universalism. The grounding of universalism, one of our founding faith traditions, provides the foundation for these values of creating community centered around our most important value. What? Love, right? In the center. The original universalist idea was a God who loves us all equally and unconditionally so that no one is condemned to some kind of eternal hell with fires and brimstones. Yes. So what we Unitarian Universalists have extracted from this theological claim is that every person has value and worth and dignity, yes. And that everyone deserves that dignity and deserves to be loved. The promise of this love is practiced in community is what Martin Luther King Jr. described as beloved community. King described this kind of love as agape, the love that makes no discrimination about who is loved, and it overflows from our hearts. King said that this love was disinterested because we didn't care if we were loved back. We could just give this love. So Universalism, though, asks us for more. It asks us not to just become this unique individual doing our own thing, but it asks us to look around us at what people around us need. Universalism asks us that this love that was given to us by the universe or by God or simply was in our hearts when we were born, that love should flow out from us, out to others around us. Not just to our family members and their friends and the people that we know, but even strangers that we meet in the street, right? Reverend Kathleen McTeague reminds us that fear's pronoun is singular. So, for instance, a singular pronoun person might say, I've got to watch out for myself. But love's pronoun is plural. We are in this together, as Reverend Sherman tells us so often. We're all in this together. The pandemic was a time when it was very difficult to practice this, right? We were all hunkered down in our own homes and had our Zoom, we were connecting through Zoom, but even that was not easy, especially for us with technology issues. We had to quite figure out when we were supposed to mute and unmute, all of that. Now it's just natural, we just know how to do it. But back then, oh my God, I don't even want to think about those days. Remember those first days when you didn't know how to mute yourself and everyone was talking behind you when you were on screen? There are a million conversations going on when people didn't know how to mute. But we learned. We learned how to be together in that, even in that difficult time of drought, really. So today, we are coming back into community that we need so much. And those of you who are watching us at home, we're so glad that you can remain safe if you have health problems and you can't be here with us. But we invite you to come back when you can, to really experience community here, where we can see each other's faces, because that's so important, and we all need that. So you are invited when you can, when you're healthy enough to join us, please do. One of our most difficult things in society today is what our Surgeon General has recently told us, that we have an epidemic of loneliness, right? We got used to staying home, we got used to looking through our screens at everyone, but we got really lonely. Surgeon General says that it has harmed our overall individual and societal health. He tells us that finding relationships of healing can provide us with that sense of well-being, which will make us healthier and more fulfilled. It's even more healthy to be connected in a community. So when we find those ways of connecting with each other, to practice that kind of agape love that Martin Luther King talked about, that our UU forebears held up as an ideal, that is our mission, that is our faith, to build communities where everyone is respected, everyone is heard, and that we each take responsibility and accountability for building beloved community. Now that's easier said than done. Those are ideals, but not always easy in the real world. So much of what we do in today's world is transactional, right? We go to the grocery store, we buy our groceries. We go on our computers, we buy our groceries. We go to the library and get our books, or we go to our computers and get our books. But it's often transactional. We go to get something to bring back. So in our daily life, we don't often have a way to interact meaningfully with other individuals. But we here, and those of you at home, we are lucky because we have this community of agape love built into this wonderful church community. And we have the opportunity to interact with each other in so many deeply meaningful ways. Oh, yesterday's workshop coming together, talking about shared ministry was so wonderful. We got to hear so many different ideas of how we build shared ministry. In our religious education classes, both for our children and youth and for adults as well, we interact in deeply meaningful ways. And we see this every week. But our Universalist tradition asks us for more. It asks us not just to build beloved community here. We need to build community outside these walls, in the world that needs it so badly. And so many of you are already doing that. I know what so many of you are doing. Things like reading to kids at Cardinal School, facilitating the Living the Pledge workshops. And if you haven't had the Living the Pledge workshop, see somebody afterwards will tell you about it. Welcoming in newcomers to our pathways. How many of you are here with pathways today? Welcome, newcomers. We're so glad you're here. Another way that we are connecting and building community. Our quilters are making quilts for kids who are experiencing trauma. They have a quilt to warm them and hold them. Wednesday, a number of us went down to General Assembly and talked to our legislators about issues of poverty and about people who are incarcerated, giving them more freedom. Lots of important issues. Tomorrow, some of us are going to go back down to our General Assembly and talk to our legislators about reproductive justice. If you want to join us, see Joan. I could go on all day of all the things we're going to do. The Reproductive Justice Group is also going to support the Richmond Medical Center for Women. So also see Alex. Where are you? Alex may not be here right now. Oh, anyway. Okay. You can see one of us to tell us about how we're going to support the Richmond Medical Center for Women. There's so many things going on that are going to support our community, to get us out of these walls. But in those important outreaches, we have to remember that we aren't just giving charity, we aren't just giving money, we're giving our love. We're giving our love freely, the love of Universalism, which is open and free to all. And so I always look for people who are good examples of that, and one of the best examples of that is Fred Rogers. You know what he used to say? Look for the helpers, right? Look for the helpers, because they are going to be the people who show us how to do this agape love. So there's a wonderful story about Fred Rogers when he was just starting his Mr. Rogers neighborhood on WGBH in Boston, and he was taking one of the interns out to meet an executive in their home in Boston, somewhere in Boston, and the limo driver came and picked them up. And so Fred and the intern were riding in the limo, and of course Fred said, "Well, what's your name?" to the driver. "Billy." "Oh, so where do you live?" "West Roxbury." "So, Billy, tell me about yourself." So, of course, he got to know the limo driver. They got to the executive house, and Fred said, "Billy, come on, have dinner with us." You can imagine the face of the executive when they all three walked in the door. But, of course, Fred made that okay. After dinner, when they're driving home, he got to know Billy more, and Billy said, "Would you like to come meet my family?" And Fred said, "Sure." So they all went over to West Roxbury and sat and got to know Billy's family. And Fred kept that relationship until the time when Billy was dying in the hospital and Fred went to visit him. So that kind of example, that's an ordinary person doing extraordinary things. We can all be like that as well. And we all, so many of us, I see examples of this in all of you so often. So, some of you might want to ask me, so how can I do that? What can I do to get myself interacting deeply into a meaningful way in my community? So I love people like this, and I'm not particularly like this, but I like to watch. I have a sister who's like this. We're in line at a grocery store, and she'll just turn around, because, we're sitting there doing nothing. "Oh, who are you? Oh, I love those kind of cookies. Those are my favorite kind of cookies." She'll just start up a conversation and get to know someone in the grocery line. That's a skill that I don't yet have, but I would hope to attain that. Recently, when I moved to Richmond, which was 9 years ago, which is pretty recently, right? I was surprised at my neighborhood because my neighbors knew each other, and I hadn't been in that kind of a neighborhood for a while. We do things together like 5 or 6 times a year. We have neighborhood, and we are always, visiting each other's houses. It's wonderful. I want to encourage you, because this wasn't natural to me either, to get to know your neighbors. Even if you don't share the same political views, you can share love. You can share friendship. You can share lots of things. So that's one thing I have found to be deeply meaningful, getting to know my neighbors. Signing up to do something in your community you've never done, volunteering in a food bank, reading at Cardinal School, taking a class at one of our cultural centers like the Shepherd Center, are all wonderful ways to get to know people in a deeply more meaningful way. So, we as UUs have that central value of liberating love, grounding all of our Unitarian Universalist values of interdependence, pluralism, justice, equity, generosity, and transformation. I know you'll all know those by the end of the year. We don't know them yet, but we're learning our new values. When we find ways to practice this love every day in our communities, then we know that we are living our faith. There is a love holding us, holding all of us.
In the interest of time, repeat after me. Finding our way back home. Walking the road to forgiveness. Wherever we are, no matter how far, we're finding our way back home. You don't have to, but you can if you want to. Sing that at some point. And Diane Sneed and Jana Fisher are soloists.
Finding our way back
Our chalice extinguishing is by Rebecca Parker. Your gifts, whatever you discover them to be, can be used to bless or curse the world. You must answer this question: what will you do with your gifts?
Even when our hearts are broken by our own failure, there is a universal love that has never broken faith with us. We are asked to do more. Let us choose to bless the world with our love. Amen. Go in peace. Oh, we're going to do our closing hymn. And our closing hymn is, what's our closing hymn? That.
Nice job.